My name is Margaret. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my lawyer burst through my office door, papers trembling in his hands. What he told me about my daughter-in-law made my world collapse. You won't believe what she'd been doing behind our backs. If you are watching this, kindly subscribe and let me know where you are watching from, and I hope that you're safe, wherever you are. My name is Margaret Sullivan, and at 73, I thought I'd seen everything life could throw at me. I'd built Sullivan and Associates from nothing, raised 3 children after my husband died young, and weathered every storm with grace. That Tuesday morning felt like any other. Rain drummed against my corner office windows, overlooking downtown Portland. Steam rose from my coffee cup as I reviewed the quarterly financial reports. Our family consulting firm was thriving. Revenue up 12%. Client satisfaction scores in the 90s. I was proud of what we'd built together. The door burst open without warning. David Richardson, my lawyer for 25 years, stood in the doorway. His usually composed face was pale. His hands shook as he clutched a manila envelope. "Margaret, we need to talk immediately." I set down my reading glasses. David never visited without appointments. Never looked this shaken. "What's wrong?" He closed the door behind him, locked it. The click echoed through my spacious office like a gunshot. "It's about Sandra." My heart stuttered. Sandra, my daughter-in-law, mother of my beloved grandson Tommy, the woman who'd brought such joy to my son Michael's life after his difficult divorce. Is she hurt? Is Tommy okay? David placed the envelope on my mahogany desk. His fingers drummed nervously against the leather surface. "Margaret, Sandra has been stealing from you. For 3 years." The words hit like ice water. I gripped my desk chair, knuckles white against the burgundy leather. "That's impossible. Sandra manages our charitable foundation. She's family. The evidence is overwhelming." David opened the envelope. Bank statements scattered across my desk like fallen leaves. Account numbers I'd never seen. Transactions I'd never authorized. My signature forged on documents worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. My chest tightened. The room tilted sideways. "How much?" David's voice was barely a whisper. $2.7 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. I slumped forward, head spinning. 27 years of careful savings. My grandchildren's college funds. The foundation money meant for hungry families. All stolen by the woman I'd welcomed into our home. "There's more, Margaret. Sandra isn't who she claims to be." My world went black. When I came to, David was holding a glass of water to my lips. My secretary Julia hovered nearby, concern etched across her weathered face. "Should I call Dr. Morrison?" Julia asked. I waved her away. "I'm fine. Just shocked." But I wasn't fine. Nothing would ever be fine again. David helped me sit up straight. The bank statements still covered my desk, like evidence of a crime scene, which I realized with growing horror was exactly what they were. "Tell me everything," I whispered. David pulled out additional documents, police reports, background checks, a web of lies so intricate it took my breath away. "Sandra's real name is Samantha Valdez. She's a professional con artist with a history spanning 15 years. She's done this to 7 other families. 7 other families. 7 other grandmothers who'd trusted and been destroyed. Michael doesn't know. We need to tell him carefully. She's manipulated him completely." I thought about my son, gentle Michael, who'd been so grateful to find love again after his bitter divorce from Tommy's mother. He'd been lonely for years before Sandra appeared like an angel of mercy, an angel who was actually a demon in disguise. "What do we do now?" David gathered the papers with legal precision. "We fight back. But first we need to secure whatever assets she hasn't already stolen." I reached for my phone with trembling fingers. The family business account password, the foundation checkbook, the investment portfolios Sandra had access to as my trusted daughter-in-law. How much more had she taken while I was unconscious for 5 minutes? But the real question burning in my chest was more personal, more devastating than any financial loss. How was I going to tell my son that the woman he loved, the mother figure to his 10-year-old son, was a criminal who'd been systematically destroying our family? 3 years ago, Sandra had walked into our lives like answered prayer. Michael had been alone for 4 years after his messy divorce from Rachel. Tommy, only 7 then, desperately needed a mother figure. I remember the exact moment Michael introduced her. Sunday dinner at my house, a tradition I'd maintained for decades. He'd asked permission to bring someone special. She was breathtaking. Auburn hair cascading over delicate shoulders. Emerald eyes that sparkled with intelligence and warmth. When she spoke, her voice carried a slight southern accent that made everything sound like honey. "Mrs. Sullivan, Michael's told me so much about you. I've been dying to meet the woman who raised such an amazing man." The compliment melted my defenses instantly. Sandra had a story ready for everything. Orphaned young, raised by her grandmother in rural Georgia, worked her way through college studying nonprofit management, passionate about helping disadvantaged children. "I've always believed family comes first," she'd said that first evening, helping me clear dinner dishes while Michael played video games with Tommy. "Money and success mean nothing without people to share them with." How those words would haunt me later. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to be betrayed? The way Sandra integrated herself into our family was masterful. She never pushed too hard or moved too fast. Every gesture felt natural, every kindness genuine. Within 6 months, she was attending every family gathering. Tommy adored her. She remembered his favorite foods, helped with homework, attended every school event. The child who'd been withdrawn and angry after his parents' divorce began smiling again. "Grandma, Sandra makes the best pancakes," Tommy would tell me excitedly, "and she knows all the words to the songs I like." Michael was transformed too. The stress lines around his eyes faded. He laughed more freely than I'd heard in years. When he looked at Sandra, I saw the same expression he'd worn as a little boy on Christmas morning. Pure joy. "Mom, I think she's the one," he'd confided during one of our weekly lunch dates. I never thought I'd find love like this again. I'd been genuinely happy for him. After watching him struggle through loneliness and single parenthood, seeing him radiate happiness felt like a gift. Sandra made herself indispensable gradually. She offered to help with filing at the office, volunteered to organize the foundation's annual charity gala, insisted on managing the foundation's daily operations because nonprofit work is my calling. I'd been grateful for the help. At 70, running a business and a foundation was exhausting. Having someone passionate and capable take over the charitable work felt like divine intervention. She had credentials that checked out, references that sang her praises, a resume that demonstrated years of nonprofit experience. Everything looked perfect because she'd made it perfect. The first red flag was so subtle, I dismissed it immediately. Sandra had mentioned growing up in rural Georgia, but one evening at dinner, she described details about Atlanta's inner city that seemed oddly specific for someone from a small town. I meant I visited there often, she'd explained when I gently questioned the discrepancy. My grandmother took me to the city regularly for medical appointments. Reasonable explanation. I'd felt foolish for even noticing. The second red flag came during Tommy's school play. Sandra had been telling us about her college theater experience, but when Tommy's drama teacher complimented her knowledge of stagecraft, Sandra seemed genuinely surprised by the praise. "You're too kind," she'd said. "I'm just remembering things from long ago." Again, perfectly reasonable. The third flag was financial. Sandra had mentioned student loans from her college years, but she drove a new BMW and wore expensive jewelry. When I'd asked about it privately, she'd explained that her grandmother had left her a small inheritance. "Nothing compared to what you've built, Mrs. Sullivan, but enough to live comfortably." I'd admired her humility. Looking back now, I realized how carefully she'd crafted every detail. The perfect amount of vulnerability mixed with strength. Enough mystery to be intriguing without seeming secretive. Every answer designed to shut down further questions while making me feel guilty for asking them. She'd studied our family like a scientist, learned our weaknesses, our desires, our fears. Tommy needed a mother. Michael needed companionship. I needed help with the foundation. Sandra became exactly what each of us required. The truly diabolical part was how she'd made me complicit in my own destruction.
When I'd suggested
The
giving her
conference room
access
at
to the
David's law
foundation
office
accounts,
felt like
she'd
a war
initially
room.
refused.
Documents
Mrs.
covered every
Sullivan,
surface.
I couldn't
Computer
possibly.
screens
That's
displayed
too
bank
much
records,
responsibility.
background
I'd
checks,
insisted,
and police
practically
reports.
begged her to
I
take
sat
over
across
because
from
she was
Detective
so much
Sarah
more
Chen,
organized
a
than I
specialist in
was.
financial
She'd finally
crimes who'd been
agreed with
tracking
great
Sandra for 2
reluctance,
years.
making me feel
Mrs.
like I was
Sullivan,
doing her a favor
your
by letting
daughter-in-law
her
is
steal from
extremely
me.
sophisticated.
Brilliant. By the time
Detective
Michael
Chen
proposed,
explained. She's
Sandra
not just
wasn't
stealing
part
money,
of our family.
she's building
She was
false
the
identities,
foundation that held
creating
us together.
fake businesses,
The wedding was small
manipulating
but perfect.
multiple
Tommy
victims
proudly walked her
simultaneously.
down the aisle.
The manila folder
beaming as he
Detective
gained
Chen
the mother
opened
he'd always
contained
wanted.
photographs,
I'd cried
different
tears
women,
of joy that
different
day,
hair colors,
grateful that
but the
my
same
broken
emerald
family had
eyes
been healed
that had
by this
captivated my
amazing
son.
woman's love.
Sandra
Now I knew the
Martinez
truth.
in Phoenix
Sandra hadn't
destroyed
healed
a
our
family
family.
restaurant
She'd
business.
infected us like a
Samantha
virus,
Peterson in
slowly
Denver
poisoning
embezzled from a
everything we
children's
built
hospital.
while we thanked her
Sarah
for the
Williams
privilege.
in
But
Austin
discovering
cleaned
her
out
theft
an
was
elderly
only the
couple's
beginning.
retirement
David's
savings.
investigation
Each
had
photograph
revealed something
showed her
far
with
more
different
sinister than
men,
simple
different
greed.
families, different lives she'd infiltrated and destroyed. She specifically targets widowers with children and aging parents, the detective continued. She studies their vulnerabilities, becomes exactly what they need, then systematically drains their resources. My stomach churned. How did she choose us? Your son's divorce was public record. The custody battle with his ex-wife was covered in local newspapers. Sandra would have seen that he was vulnerable, successful, and had family money. David spread out additional evidence. She's been forging your signature for 3 years. Look at these documents. Loan applications I'd never signed, investment withdrawals I'd never authorized, charitable donations to organizations that didn't exist. My signature was perfect on every document because she'd practiced for months before making her first theft. The foundation money was easiest to steal. Detective Chen explained. Charitable organizations have fewer oversight requirements. She created fake invoices for services never provided, claimed expenses for events that never happened, transferred funds to shell companies she controlled. The methodology was breathtaking in its thoroughness. Sandra had studied our family's financial patterns, learned our banking habits, identified every possible vulnerability. She also has psychological training, the detective added grimly. 2 years of community college psychology courses. She knows how to manipulate emotional responses, create dependency, isolate victims from potential support systems. I thought about how Sandra had gradually become my confidant, how she'd encouraged me to rely on her judgment, how she'd subtly criticized my other relationships, making me trust her opinion above everyone else's. What about references? Her work history? All fabricated. The companies she claimed to work for exist, but no records of her employment. The people who provided references were either paid actors or fellow criminals. David pulled out the most devastating evidence yet. Medical records with my forged signature authorizing Sandra as my healthcare proxy. Legal documents giving her power of attorney if I became incapacitated. She was preparing to steal everything, I whispered. If you'd had a heart attack or stroke, she would have gained complete control of your assets. Your son would have trusted her to make decisions in your best interest. The room spun around me. Sandra hadn't just been stealing money. She'd been positioning herself to destroy our family completely if the opportunity arose. There's something else, Detective Chen said quietly. She's pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. A baby, my grandchild, Michael's child. How far along? 3 months. She told your son 2 weeks ago. I buried my face in my hands. Michael had been over the moon with excitement. He'd called me immediately, voice breaking with joy, as he shared the news that he was going to be a father again. Tommy's going to have a little brother or sister, Mom. Can you believe it? Our family is going to grow. Now that baby would be born to a criminal mother who'd used pregnancy as another weapon in her arsenal of manipulation. What happens to the child? I asked. That depends on several factors. David replied carefully. Michael's paternity rights, Sandra's eventual conviction, the court's determination of what's in the child's best interest. Another innocent victim in Sandra's web of destruction. Detective Chen closed her folder. Mrs. Sullivan, we need your help building the strongest possible case. Are you willing to press charges? I thought about Tommy, who'd finally found happiness with the mother figure he'd always wanted. About Michael, who was planning to name their unborn child after my late husband. About our family business and charitable foundation that Sandra had systematically looted. What choice do I have? You could try to handle this privately, confront her directly, try to recover whatever money is still accessible. David shook his head. That would be a mistake. She's too sophisticated, too dangerous. The moment she realizes we're onto her, she'll disappear with everything she can steal. How much time do we have? Days, maybe weeks. She's accelerating her timeline. The pregnancy gives her additional leverage over your son. She's probably planning her exit strategy. I stood up slowly, joints aching from the stress. At 73, I'd thought I was too old for this kind of fight, but Sandra had underestimated me. I hadn't built a successful business by backing down from battles. Detective Chen, you have my full cooperation. David, prepare whatever legal documents we need. I want Sandra behind bars before she destroys another family. But even as I spoke the words, I knew the hardest part was still ahead. I had to convince my son that the woman carrying his child was a criminal who'd been systematically destroying us for 3 years. And I had to do it before she realized we knew the truth. The restaurant was neutral territory, a quiet Italian place where Michael and I had shared countless conversations over the years. I arrived early, hands trembling as I organized the evidence David had given me. Bank statements, police reports, photographs of Sandra's other identities. How do you destroy your son's world with a manila folder? Michael walked in at exactly 7, the way he'd been punctual his entire life. He looked happier than I'd seen him in years. The glow of expectant fatherhood radiated from every gesture. Mom, thanks for dinner. Sandra's feeling better tonight, but the morning sickness has been brutal. He slid into the booth across from me. She wanted me to tell you how grateful she is for the baby clothes you dropped off. Baby clothes I'd bought for my grandchild, who would be born to a criminal mother. Michael, we need to talk about Sandra. Something in my tone made his smile fade. Is everything okay? I placed the folder on the table between us like a bomb waiting to explode. Your wife has been stealing from our family for 3 years. The color drained from his face. Mom, what are you talking about? Sandra isn't who she claims to be. Her real name is Samantha Valdez. She's a professional con artist who's done this to 7 other families. Michael's laugh was sharp, disbelieving. That's insane. Sandra loves our family. She's devoted her life to helping people through the foundation. I opened the folder, spread the bank statements across the white tablecloth, like evidence in a courtroom. She's stolen $2.7 million. Michael, look at these transactions. He stared at the papers, but didn't touch them. There has to be an explanation. Maybe someone stole her identity. Maybe she forged my signature, created fake businesses, transferred foundation money to accounts she controls. No, his voice was flat, final. I won't listen to this. Look at the evidence. I don't need to look at anything. His voice rose, drawing stares from other diners. Sandra is my wife, the mother of my children. She would never. She's done this before. I pulled out Detective Chen's photographs. Phoenix, Denver, Austin, different names, same face. Michael glanced at the photos, then pushed them away like they were poisonous. Someone's trying to frame her. This is all fake. The denial in his voice broke my heart. Sandra had manipulated him so completely that he couldn't see the truth even when it was documented in black and white. Michael, please, just listen. No, Mom. You listen. He leaned forward, anger replacing shock. Sandra saved our family. Tommy was angry and withdrawn after the divorce. I was lonely and lost. She brought us back to life. She targeted you specifically, studied your vulnerabilities. She stood abruptly. I don't know what's happened to you, but this paranoid conspiracy thinking isn't who you raised me to be. The accusation stung because it was exactly what Sandra would want him to think, that I was the problem, that I was jealous of his happiness. Son, please sit down. Let me explain everything. There's nothing to explain. Sandra is pregnant with my child. We're building a life together, and you're trying to destroy it with lies. How do you fight for your family when they won't listen? The question echoed in my chest as I watched my son struggle with information that contradicted everything he believed about his wife. Michael, I love you. I love Tommy. I want to protect our family. Then stop attacking Sandra. His voice cracked with emotion. She's been nothing but loving and generous. She works tirelessly for the foundation. She takes care of Tommy like he's her own child. She's been stealing from that foundation. I don't believe you. The words hung between us like a chasm. My son, my firstborn child, was choosing a criminal over his own mother. What if I'm right? I asked quietly. What if everything I'm showing you is true? For a moment, doubt flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by fierce loyalty. You're not right. You can't be right. Because if you are, then everything I believe about love and family and trust is a lie. He gathered his jacket and keys. I'm going home to my wife. And Mom, don't contact us until you're ready to apologize for these accusations. Michael, wait. But he was already walking away, leaving me alone with evidence of his wife's crimes and the devastating realization that Sandra had won this round. I sat in the empty restaurant, staring at the photographs of Sandra's other victims, other families she'd torn apart, other sons who'd chosen her lies over their family's truth. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. Stop investigating me, or you'll lose your son forever. Cass. She knew. Sandra knew we'd discovered her crimes, which meant she was about to escalate her
David's
manipulation
office felt
to
like a
levels I
bunker.
couldn't
The
imagine.
next morning,
The war for my
Detective
family's
Chen
soul
had
was
arrived
just
with a federal
beginning.
agent, a woman named Patricia Williams, who specialized in interstate fraud cases. Mrs. Sullivan, Sandra made a critical mistake by threatening you. Agent Williams explained. That text message is evidence of witness intimidation. It also tells us she's accelerating her timeline. The war room had expanded overnight. More photographs, more bank records, more evidence of Sandra's systematic destruction of innocent families. We've been building a case against her for 18 months, the agent continued. She operates in a pattern, 3 years maximum in each location before she moves on. Your family was her biggest target yet. Detective Chen pulled up Sandra's real background on her laptop. Samantha Marie Valdez, born in El Paso, Texas. Father unknown. Mother died of a drug overdose when she was 12. Raised in foster care. The screen showed a timeline of Sandra's criminal evolution. Petty theft as a teenager. Identity fraud in her 20s. Romance scams that grew increasingly sophisticated. She's brilliant, Agent Williams admitted. IQ tested at 147. Photographic memory. Exceptional emotional intelligence that she uses as a weapon. How many families has she destroyed? Confirmed. 12. We suspect at least 20 more. 20 families torn apart by one woman's greed and manipulation. She usually steals between $1 and $3 million per target, Detective Chen added. But your family was different. The foundation gave her access to larger amounts. Your business connections opened doors to wealthy donors she could manipulate. David spread out financial records showing the true scope of Sandra's theft. She wasn't just stealing from you directly. She was using your reputation to commit additional crimes. Fake charity events, where she'd collected donations that never reached their intended recipients. Business partnerships she'd negotiated using your family's name, then disappeared with advance payments. A web of fraud that extended far beyond our personal losses. The total damage is approaching $5 million, Agent Williams said grimly. The number hit me like ice water. Not just our family's money, but funds stolen from genuine charities, real people in need, legitimate businesses who trusted our reputation. There's something else, Detective Chen said quietly. Sandra isn't working alone. She pulled up surveillance photos from a hotel in downtown Portland. Sandra meeting with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, dark hair, expensive suit. Marcus Rivera. He's been her partner for 3 years. Professional con artist with expertise in document forgery and electronic fraud. The photograph showed Sandra and Marcus embracing like lovers. Is she involved with him romantically? Has been for years. Your son is just another mark to her. The pregnancy is probably calculated to maximize emotional leverage during her exit strategy. My heart broke for Michael, who believed he'd found true love with a woman who was simultaneously carrying on an affair with her criminal partner. Where is Rivera now? Unknown. He disappeared 2 days ago. Same time Sandra sent you that threatening text. Agent Williams leaned forward. Mrs. Sullivan, we believe Sandra is planning to disappear within the next 72 hours. The pregnancy gives her perfect cover to claim she needs to visit family or seek medical care. What about my son? My grandson. If she runs, she'll likely try to take Tommy with her. Create maximum emotional damage while ensuring your son can't immediately pursue her. The thought of Sandra kidnapping Tommy made my chest tighten with rage. She'd already stolen our money, our trust, our family's peace. Now she wanted to steal our children too. How do we stop her? Agent Williams smiled grimly. We're going to use her own tactics against her. She thinks she's smarter than law enforcement because she's never been caught. That arrogance will be her downfall. Detective Chen opened a new folder. We're setting a trap, making her believe she has an opportunity for one final massive theft, something too tempting to resist. What kind of trap? David pulled out legal documents. A fake inheritance. Your wealthy sister in California has supposedly died, leaving you $10 million. You'll need Sandra's help managing the complex estate transfer. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Sandra's greed would overcome her caution. She'd see an opportunity for the biggest score of her career and risk everything to claim it. What if she doesn't take the bait? She will. Agent Williams said confidently. We've studied her psychology. She can't resist easy money, especially when she thinks she's manipulating a grieving family member. But there was a catch that made my stomach churn. To make this convincing, we need your son's cooperation. He has to believe the inheritance is real. His genuine emotional responses will sell the deception. More lies, more manipulation. Using my own son as bait in a trap to catch his criminal wife. He won't cooperate if he knows the truth. I said quietly. No, he can't know. Sandra will sense any deception from him immediately. So I had to lie to my son about a fake inheritance to trap his wife in a federal sting operation. The irony was bitter. To catch a liar, I had to become one myself. When do we start? Today. We need to move fast before she disappears. Agent Williams handed me a script. The lies I would tell Michael about my sister's sudden death. The grief I would fake to manipulate Sandra into stealing from a non-existent estate. Mrs. Sullivan, are you prepared to do whatever it takes to stop her? I thought about the 20 families Sandra had destroyed. The innocent children who'd lost college funds to her greed. The elderly victims who'd lost their retirement savings to her manipulation. I thought about Tommy, who loved Sandra like a mother, but was just another tool in her criminal arsenal. I thought about the unborn baby, whose life would be shaped by Sandra's lies unless we stopped her now. Yes, I'm prepared. But as I said the words, I wondered if stopping Sandra would require me to become someone I didn't recognize. Someone willing to lie and manipulate and deceive even her own family. The battle lines were drawn. In 72 hours, either Sandra would be behind bars, or she'd disappear forever with pieces of our family. Time to find out who was the better manipulator. The phone call came at 6 a.m. Michael's voice was thick with tears. Mom, I'm so sorry about Aunt Patricia. I know you two were close. I gripped the receiver, hating myself for the lie. Patricia, my imaginary sister in California, who'd supposedly died in a car accident, leaving me a $10 million inheritance. Thank you, sweetheart. It's been such a shock. Sandra wants to help with the estate arrangements. She has experience with legal paperwork from the foundation. The trap was working. Sandra had taken the bait exactly as Agent Williams predicted. That would be wonderful. I'm too emotional to handle complex financial matters right now. Within hours, Sandra was at my house with homemade soup and professional sympathy. She hugged me tightly, her pregnant belly pressed against my ribs. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm so sorry for your loss. Patricia sounds like she was an amazing woman. The performance was flawless. Genuine tears in her emerald eyes, trembling voice full of compassion. If I didn't know she was a professional con artist, I would have been completely convinced by her grief. She was my only remaining family. I lied. Besides you and Michael and Tommy, of course. Sandra squeezed my hand. We're all the family you need. And we're going to help you through this difficult time. She stayed for 3 hours, gently extracting details about the fictional inheritance. The lawyer's name in San Francisco, the complexity of the estate. The urgency of transferring funds before tax implications became problematic. Mrs. Sullivan, $10 million is a lot of money. You'll need professional help managing it properly. I trust your judgment completely, dear. Sandra's eyes gleamed for just a moment before concern replaced the greed. I'd be honored to help, but only if you're sure. You're the daughter I never had. Who else would I trust? The words tasted like poison, but they were exactly what Sandra needed to hear. Over the next 2 days, Sandra threw herself into the fictional estate management with frightening efficiency. She contacted the fake lawyer Agent Williams had provided, reviewed forged documents, made travel arrangements to California for what she believed would be the transfer of millions in inherited assets. She was magnificent in her deception, caring wife and daughter-in-law by day, calculating criminal by night. I watched her manipulate Michael with surgical precision. Honey, your mother is so fragile right now. We need to handle everything carefully, so she doesn't make emotional decisions about the money. You're amazing for taking care of this, Michael replied, kissing her forehead. Mom's lucky to have you. If only he knew she was planning to steal every penny. The federal agents monitored every phone call, every email, every financial transaction. Sandra was walking into their trap with absolute confidence. But Tuesday evening, everything changed. I was reviewing fake inheritance documents when my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Sullivan, this is Jenny Martinez. I think your daughter-in-law killed my sister. The world stopped spinning. What are you talking about? My sister Maria was married to a man named Robert Chen in Phoenix. Sandra Martinez was Robert's girlfriend. Maria died in a car accident right before Sandra disappeared with all of Robert's money. My blood turned to ice. How did you get my number? I've been tracking Sandra for 2 years. My sister's death wasn't an accident. Sandra cut her brake lines. Murder. Sandra wasn't just a thief. She was a killer. Do you have proof? Enough to make the police interested. I'm driving to Portland tonight. We need to meet. I hung up with trembling hands and immediately called Agent Williams. Agent Williams. I just got a call about Sandra possibly being involved in a murder. Silence on the other end of the line. We'll need to verify that information. Don't do anything until we can confirm the details. But verification might take days. The trap was set for tomorrow. Sandra was planning to fly to California with access to fake accounts containing millions in federal bait money. What would you do if someone tried to destroy everything you built? The question burned in my chest as I realized the woman living in my son's house, carrying my grandchild, might be a murderer. I made a decision that would haunt me forever.
I drove to Michael's house at midnight. Sandra's BMW was in the driveway. Lights were on in the living room. I had to warn my family, even if it meant destroying the federal investigation. But as I approached the front door, I heard voices inside, angry voices. Through the window, I saw Sandra on the phone, pacing frantically. Marcus, we need to leave tonight. Something's wrong. The old lady is acting strange. She knew, Sandra knew the inheritance was fake. The federal trap had failed. But she was still in my son's house, still planning her escape, still potentially dangerous to my family. I had one chance to end this nightmare. I called 911. Police cars surrounded Michael's house within minutes. Federal agents coordinated with local law enforcement as I watched from across the street, heart hammering against my ribs. Agent Williams approached me as officers took positions around the building. Mrs. Sullivan, how did you know she was planning to run tonight? I heard her on the phone with Marcus. She knew the inheritance was fake. Through the living room window, I could see Sandra moving frantically, throwing items into suitcases. Michael stood nearby, confusion evident in his posture. We need to move fast, Agent Williams said into her radio. Suspect is preparing to flee with possible hostage. Hostage. My son and grandson were hostages in their own home. The front door burst open. Sandra emerged with Tommy, her arm around his shoulders. The boy looked sleepy and confused, wearing pajamas and carrying his favorite stuffed animal. Where are we going, Sandra? Tommy's voice carried across the night air. Just a little trip, sweetie. We'll be back soon. More lies. Sandra was planning to disappear forever, taking Tommy as leverage to ensure Michael wouldn't immediately pursue her. Federal agents, stop where you are. Sandra froze on the front steps, Tommy pressed against her side. For a moment, her perfect composure cracked. I saw the real woman beneath the mask, cold, calculating, desperate. "I'm pregnant," she called out. "I'm not dangerous, I just need medical attention." Even facing arrest, she was still manipulating the situation. Michael appeared in the doorway behind them. "What's happening? Why are there police here?" Agent Williams stepped forward with her badge visible. "Mr. Sullivan, your wife is under arrest for federal fraud charges. Please step away from her slowly." "That's impossible," Michael said. "There's been a mistake." Sandra's expression shifted to wounded innocence. "Michael, they're trying to frame me. Your mother put them up to this because she's jealous of our happiness." Even facing federal agents, she was still trying to manipulate my son. "Sir, we need you to take your son and move away from the suspect," Agent Williams commanded. "I'm not leaving my wife," Michael replied firmly. Sandra smiled triumphantly. Her manipulation was working even as handcuffs appeared in the agent's hands. Then Detective Chen stepped forward with a thick folder. "Mr. Sullivan, your wife's real name is Samantha Valdez. She's wanted in connection with fraud in 7 states and possible murder in Arizona." Murder. The word hit Michael like a physical blow. "That's not true," Sandra whispered. "Michael, don't listen to them." But doubt was finally creeping into my son's expression. Detective Chen opened her folder, revealing the photographs of Sandra's other identities, other victims, other families she'd destroyed. "She's done this before, Mr. Sullivan. She targets widowed fathers with children and aging parents. She becomes exactly what the family needs, then systematically steals everything they own." Michael stared at the evidence with growing horror. "Sandra," his voice was barely a whisper. She looked up at him with those emerald eyes that had captivated our family for 3 years. "I love you, Michael. Everything I did was for our family. You stole from my mother. I was trying to secure our future. You lied about everything. I lied about my past, not my feelings." Tommy looked between the adults, sensing the tension but not understanding the implications. "Is Sandra in trouble?" he asked innocently. The question broke the spell. Michael finally stepped forward and lifted Tommy into his arms, moving away from the woman who'd manipulated them all. "Yes, buddy. Sandra's in trouble." Sandra's composure finally shattered completely. "Michael, please. I'm carrying your baby. Don't let them do this to our family." The pregnancy card, her final manipulation, but Agent Williams had prepared for this moment. "Miss Valdez, you're under arrest for interstate fraud, money laundering, identity theft, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." As the handcuffs clicked around Sandra's wrists, she looked directly at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over, old woman. I'll destroy your family from prison if I have to." Even defeated, she was still making threats. 6 months later, I sat in my garden, watching Tommy play with his new dog, a golden retriever puppy we'd gotten to help him process the trauma of Sandra's arrest. The morning sun filtered through oak leaves, painting everything in gentle gold. Michael approached with 2 cups of coffee, settling beside me on the wooden bench his father had built 30 years ago. "The trial starts next week," he said quietly. Sandra had been denied bail after additional evidence surfaced, linking her to 3 suspicious deaths in different states. The woman who'd seemed like an angel had actually been a predator of the most dangerous kind. "Are you ready to testify?" Michael nodded, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. Learning that the woman you loved was a criminal who'd manipulated every moment of your relationship left scars that time wouldn't easily heal. "Tommy asked me yesterday if Sandra really loved us," he said. "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that Sandra isn't capable of real love. She only knows how to pretend." Tommy had handled the revelation better than expected. Children were resilient in ways that amazed me. His therapist said the consistency of Michael's love and my presence would help him understand that Sandra's deception wasn't his fault. "Mom, I owe you an apology," Michael continued. "When you tried to warn me, I chose her lies over your truth. You loved her. Love makes us vulnerable to deception, but you're my mother. I should have trusted you." I reached for his hand. Sandra was a professional manipulator. She'd perfected her techniques on dozens of families before ours. "The fact that you loved deeply enough to be deceived shows your capacity for trust, not weakness." The financial recovery was ongoing. Federal agents had frozen Sandra's accounts
and recovered approximately 60% of the stolen funds. The rest was probably hidden in offshore accounts we'd never find. But the foundation was rebuilding. Legitimate donations were increasing as word spread about our ordeal. People wanted to support an organization that had survived such systematic attack. Detective Chen called yesterday, Michael said. They found evidence linking Sandra to 5 murders across 4 states. She won't ever be released from prison. Justice felt hollow when it came at such a personal cost. My son's trust had been shattered. Tommy had lost the mother figure he'd adored. Our family's sense of security would take years to rebuild, but we were rebuilding together. The baby Sandra had claimed was Michael's turned out to be Marcus Rivera's child. DNA testing revealed another layer of deception in her web of lies. Even the pregnancy she'd used to manipulate our emotions had been built on fraud. Are you dating anyone? I asked gently. Michael laughed for the first time in months. Mom, I don't think I'll ever trust romantic feelings again. Sandra taught me that love can be a weapon. Don't let her steal your capacity for happiness along with everything else. Maybe someday. Right now, Tommy and I are enough family for each other. We sat in comfortable silence, watching Tommy teach his puppy to fetch. Simple domestic moments that felt precious after months of legal battles and emotional upheaval. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Williams. Sandra pleaded guilty to all charges. Life sentence without parole. She wants to speak with you. I showed Michael the message. Do you want to talk to her? He asked. No. I never want to see her again. Some people said closure required confrontation. I disagree. Closure came from rebuilding what she'd tried to destroy, from protecting future families from her manipulation, from loving my son and grandson enough to fight for our survival. Sandra had taken our money, our trust, and our peace of mind. But she hadn't taken our love for each other. That was the victory that mattered. As the afternoon faded, Tommy ran over with his puppy, both of them covered in grass stains and joy. Grandma, can Max sleep in my room tonight? If your dad says it's okay. Michael ruffled his son's hair. Just for tonight. Tommy cheered and ran back to his dog, resilient and hopeful in the way only children could be. Mom, Michael said quietly, thank you for fighting for our family. Even when I wouldn't listen. That's what mothers do, sweetheart. We fight for the people we love. The sun was setting over Portland, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but we'd face them together. Sandra had tried to destroy our family with lies and manipulation. Instead, she'd taught us the value of truth, trust, and unconditional love. In the end, she'd made us stronger than we'd ever been before. That was the greatest irony of all. If you enjoyed this story of family betrayal and ultimate triumph, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear about the power of fighting for truth, and subscribe for more compelling stories about real people facing extraordinary challenges. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light. What would